Picture this. You invite someone over for dinner. 7 o'clock. They knock on your door at exactly 7:00, not 6:58, not 7:47. Onjan, only guy. The, ba, da, da. And something in your brain just flinches. You can't explain it. You open the door, you smile, you say, "Come in," but somewhere underneath that, something felt off. Now flip it. They show up at 6:57. Totally fine, actually kind of nice. They show up at 7:06 with a slightly breathless apology. Also, fine. Charming, even. But the person who hit it perfectly? There's this tiny voice in the back of your head going, how did they do that? Were they sitting outside? Did they time this? Why does it feel like they planned this too carefully? Here's the wild part. That instinct isn't just you. It's not a quirk. It shows up across cultures, across contexts, across centuries. And it's pointing at something genuinely strange about how human trust actually works. Okay, so the obvious story goes like this. Showing up on time is respectful. It means you take the other person seriously. You planned ahead. You're reliable. And that's true. We've all been on the receiving end of someone who's chronically late, and it does feel like a message, like their time matters more than yours. Being late is rude. We get that. But here's where it gets interesting. Because if punctuality is a signal of respect and reliability, then being exactly on time should be the gold standard. The peak of the graph. The maximum respect move. Except it's not. And you already know it's not, because you felt it in that dinner scenario. The research backs this up too. Studies on social trust and first impressions consistently show that people rate individuals who arrive slightly early as more trustworthy and conscientious than people who arrive precisely on time. And in many cultural contexts, particularly in Southern Europe, Latin America, and across large parts of Africa and the Middle East, arriving exactly when the invitation says to is actually considered a little gauche. Potentially inconsiderate. Like you didn't think about the host's perspective at all. Which is baffling if you're coming from a culture that treats punctuality as basically a moral virtue. So what's going on? Here's the reframe. When someone arrives exactly on time, your brain doesn't register it as natural. It registers it as calculated. And calculated behavior triggers a very specific question. What are they trying to signal? Think about it. Real life is messy. Traffic exists. Conversations run long. Parking is a nightmare. Your keys are never where you left them. The normal outcome of trying to be somewhere at a specific time is that you're slightly early or slightly late. Because you built in buffer, or because the chaos of the world chewed into your schedule a little. Arriving exactly on time, especially repeatedly, implies one of two things. Either this person has an almost inhuman level of control over their environment, which is impressive but faintly unsettling, or they were sitting around the corner, watching the clock, timing their entrance. And that second option is the one your brain latches onto. Because here's the thing humans are deeply wired for: detecting performance. We're social animals. We spent hundreds of thousands of years in small groups where reading people's intentions accurately was survival critical. And one of the most reliable signals of a genuine intention versus a performed one is whether the behavior is too clean, too neat, too on the nose. Psychologists call this the sincerity gap. A perfectly calibrated action doesn't feel sincere, it feels engineered. And engineered behavior makes us ask, engineered for what? Engineered to impress, to control, to manipulate. None of those are warm, trustworthy thoughts. So slightly early and slightly late are both more trustworthy than exactly on time. But for completely different reasons. And this is where it gets genuinely interesting. Arriving a few minutes early says, I valued this enough to give myself a margin. I wasn't cutting it close. I wasn't doing 17 other things up until the last possible second. There's a kind of quiet signal in it, not a performance of punctuality, just evidence that you wanted to be here more than you wanted to squeeze out every other minute first. It reads as priority. not clock watching. And arriving slightly late, within reason, with some acknowledgement that you know you're late, does something different but equally trust-built. It shows you're a real person. Real people get caught in things. Real people misjudge traffic. A small, genuine lateness with a genuine apology is a human moment, and human moments create connection. You're not a machine. You're not performing. You're just a person who tried, got slightly defeated by the world, and showed up anyway. What's interesting is that across almost every culture that researchers have looked at, these soft imperfections function as authenticity markers. They're proof that you weren't managing the interaction too tightly. And tight management of an interaction, social control, is one of the oldest red flags in the book. The person who seems too prepared, too smooth, too precisely calibrated has always triggered a basic evolutionary alarm. What are they hiding behind all that control? Now there's a layer on top of all this that makes it even more complicated. Because not every culture weights these signals the same way. In Germany, Switzerland, Japan, punctuality is precision and precision is respect. Being late is a genuine social violation. Being early is safe. Being exactly on time is fine. The trust signals are built differently because the whole framework around time is different. Time is a shared resource. You honor it by treating it with precision. But in what researchers call polychronic cultures, where time is more fluid, where relationships take precedence over schedules, where the meeting starts when the right people are present rather than when the clock says so, the exact on-time thing can actually read as cold, as transactional. Like you're treating a human gathering the same way you'd treat a train departure. And honestly, both of those cultural frameworks are internally coherent. They're just built on different foundational assumptions about what time is for. Here's the modern wrinkle, though. We now live in a world where GPS tells us exactly how long a journey will take down to the minute. Calendar apps send reminders. Rideshare apps update in real time. It has never been easier, technically, to arrive exactly when you said you would, which means exact punctuality is becoming less impressive and potentially more suspicious. Because we all know the tools exist. So if you hit it perfectly every time, you're either someone who stress monitors their transit the whole way there, which is a little exhausting, or you're sitting outside refreshing your Maps app waiting for the right moment. Neither of those is the vibe. So here's where we end up. Exact punctuality should be the ideal. It's the literal correct answer to the question, when should I arrive? And yet it consistently reads as slightly off, slightly too managed, slightly suspicious. Because trust doesn't actually run on accuracy. It runs on authenticity. And authenticity, weirdly, needs a little roughness, a little imprecision, a little evidence that you're a human being operating in an imperfect world rather than a process running on a schedule. The person who arrives 2 minutes early wasn't trying to be impressive. They just cared enough to give themselves a buffer. The person who arrives 4 minutes late with an honest apology wasn't disrespecting you. They were just real. The person who arrives exactly on time, they might be the most considerate person you've ever met. Or they were parked around the corner with their hazards on watching the seconds count down. And your brain, without asking your permission, decided it wasn't sure which is a genuinely strange thing to sit with. The most reliable way to seem trustworthy is to be slightly, genuinely imperfect. And the most suspicious thing you can do is get it exactly right.